Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neuroscience of Mental Health. Today's lesson is lesson 9. It's about coping strategies. There are 10 lessons altogether. Today is the second to last. Next week, just wanted to give a little overview because I'm not sure if it was in the first overview that we did. The next lesson, we will have Michelle Palladini, who is a police officer and mindful meditation wonderful person who can teach us some mindful meditation strategies. So I hope you can join us for that last lesson as well. Coping strategies are, okay, so we have a challenge. How are we going to cope with it? The first thing I want to say about coping strategies is that your mindset matters significantly. There's a woman who does a TED Talk, Kelly McGonigal, and you can look it up, and it's Making Stress Your Friend. And she was a psychologist who went around saying to people, stress is bad for you, stress is bad for you, stress is bad for you, and it's going to give you a heart attack. And then she learned about a study that they had done, and it was a longitudinal study, which means that it goes for a long time, and they follow people. And at the beginning of the study, they said to people, do you have high stress or low stress? And do you think stress is good for you or bad for you? And what they found after following people is people with high stress who thought stress was good for them did quite well. They fared quite well. But people with high stress who thought stress was bad for them didn't do well. They tended to have a lot of heart attacks and they tended to die. Um, so they wanted to understand that. So they found out that if you think stress is good for you, in response to stress, your blood vessels don't constrict. If you think of it as like, wow, this is a challenge, I can do it, this is great, I can, this is really hard, but I can do it, I can work through. And you find you find strategies to deal with it, that your blood vessels don't constrict. But if you look at stress as a bad thing, if you say, oh my gosh, I have so much stress going on, this is awful, I've got tests, I've got all this, and I can't deal with it, you kind of do that fight, flight, or freeze. And in response to that, your blood vessels constrict, which makes you more prone to a heart attack. So what they found was that with mindful meditation, with mindful practice, people were able to change their physiological response to stress. When they were going into a stressful situation, they were able to calm themselves and say, this isn't a bad thing. And they were able to change that physiological response to a healthier one where their blood vessels didn't constrict. So thinking about challenges as something that can really motivate us makes a huge difference. If you look at a stressful situation or a challenge as something that's terrible, it really can affect your physiological reaction, the way that your body responds. So you have to think about that first off in terms of coping. You want to make stress your friend. We're going to look at a few adaptive coping behaviors and maladaptive coping behaviors. We all have stress. We all have things that are challenges in our life. And right now, we have a pretty big one, being in quarantine and not being able to go out. You may have people who are experiencing physical issues. You may have people who you know who have COVID, and that's really stressful. So coping behaviors are the way that we respond to that. Okay, this is what's happening. What do we do with it? Some adaptive coping behaviors are reaching out to supports, relaxation techniques in terms of mindful meditation and how do you breathe, how do you really get that system going to calm yourself down, problem solving, how do you use those 4 S's, humor. I notice a lot of people doing some great creative videos and musical numbers that change the words to be about what we're experiencing. A lot of funny memes out there right now. Humor is a great way to deal with challenges. Physical activity, we learned about the ant tools, getting out there and doing some workouts. I know that that is one way that a lot of people are responding to this. They're saying, well, I may have to quarantine, but when I get out of it, I'm going to be really, really fit. I'm going to get in shape. And that's a great way to respond. So let's look at some maladaptive coping behaviors. Escape is not just running away, but it's escaping into your room, spending your whole day in your room on your bed, um, trying not to interact with people, running away from things, that kind of fight, flight, or freeze, that flight, getting away and just being alone. Unhealthy self-soothing, that can be things like drugs, alcohol, food, ways that you can make yourself feel better, but really in the long run, that doesn't make you feel better. Numbing yourself, that's the drugs and alcohol, and different ways that we can sort of self-soothe. Compulsions and risk taking, I was looking at the slide, and I had actually created this slide for a conference right before the pandemic began. And compulsions, I had a picture of washing hands, and I was like, well, maybe we should take that one out, because washing hands is probably a good thing right now. But risk-taking behavior, doing things that are stupid, putting yourself into a dangerous situation, is a way to cope that's not really good for you. And self-harm is another way. We want to avoid these coping behaviors. It's fine for you to spend some time in your room. You need some alone time. I think that that's really important during this time. But also making sure that you're not using it as an escape. Make sure that you're interacting with people. Make sure you're reaching out and doing things. Make sure that you are thinking about, yes, I need to have a coping behavior, but let me make one that is going to make me feel better at the end of this. Um, One of the things about this is taking action. That I talked about depression, anxiety as sort of that fight, flight, or freeze, and violence as the fight. The opposite of that is action, taking action and doing something. There's a video, this is Emmanuel Kelly, and he just released a video of his new song, Never Alone. And he's really, in the video, he talks about the Never Alone challenge. He's asking people to post 20-second videos of what they're doing when they're feeling lonely. How do they keep from feeling alone? What's a coping strategy for you? Demi Lovato, Chris Martin. There are a lot of people in the video that say how they are handling this challenge. And I would highly recommend that you take the Never Alone challenge. Post a 20-second video of yourself saying, this is what I do to keep myself from feeling lonely. Things that I'm doing during this pandemic to make me feel better. And finally, I want to encourage you, if you feel like this is crossing the line into, I feel like I've got a problem here, I feel like I need some help, make sure that you're reaching out to your supports, your parents, your friends, your school counselors, your religious leaders, mentors, siblings, cousins, teammates, anyone, and asking for help, saying, hey, I need some help here. And I wanted to shout out that there are helplines out there, a lot of helplines available if you feel like you need help. NAMI is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. They have a hotline. Mentalhealth.gov has a website with hotlines for different topics. National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Mental Health Fund from Demi Lovato is raising money about mental health issues and funding hotlines. So make sure that if you're feeling that this is too great a challenge, that you're reaching out and getting help, because there are professionals out there to help you. I wanted to share as a final part of this, a poem that I wrote right after the shooting in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, Newtown. I live not too far from Newtown, and I was watching a news program, and they said there was somebody on there saying, we won't let this define us. And I thought, yeah, you will, but you get to choose how you let it define you. So I wrote this poem. There are events that change us. They permanently change who we are and who we will be. These are the events that compel us to search our souls. These are the events that force us to face who we are. These are the events that push us to our limits and test to see just how far we can go. These are the events that expose our vulnerability and emphasize our interdependence. In the hours and days that follow these events, we cannot comprehend the change that has taken place. In the weeks and months that follow, we begin to recognize our new reality. Through the years, we can begin to heal and find a new sense of purpose, one that before never would have been possible. But never, never will we be the same again. And it is through the lens of these events that we forever tell the rest of our story. We're in one of those events right now. We won't come out of this the same, but we can come out of this stronger. So I want to let you know, think about this as you might find a new sense of purpose. You might find something, a way to cope that will be something that will change you for the rest of your life and become the meaning in your world. So think about the opportunities in this experience as well. So for the reflection this week, what are some of the coping strategies that you're using? Are there others that you can add that would be healthy? I know that one of the things that I decided is that I'm going to work out with my daughter, and she put me through 3 workouts today. So I'm trying to use that fitness as a goal here. So I will see you at the next lesson. Thanks.